I can't think of anybody who knows more about the economic travails of sending our children to school than Lisa Graham Keegan, who is currently the president of Education Breakthrough Net. What is that?
Network. It's a network of all the providers and advocates for school choice in the country. So these are people who either run or advocate for public charter schools, private schools, online schools, home schools, tutoring, anything that you choose rather than get assigned to because of where you live.
And I don't even have a kid in school anymore, but I still got a scarf.
National School Choice Week, over 40 states celebrating with 200 organizations all over the country, events all over the place, rallies, and just making the point that right now, school choice is the fastest growing sector of American education. In Arizona, actually, district enrollment is down. All of the growth in Arizona schools is on the choice side now. Far more students choosing that option than to simply go to the school that they get assigned.
Well, what are we celebrating, though? Because can't we go now in Arizona to any school we want to?
No, not yet. Waiting list in Arizona, top 30,000 kids, Pat, trying to get into public charter schools or private schools. The private school families just don't have the money to do it, and they're looking for scholarships. In the case of the public charter schools, Arizona pays $1,500 to $2,000 less per pupil. So those schools have a hard time growing. They have a hard time finding facilities. They don't get money the way that local school districts do. They raise a bond, and you and I pay for that on our local property tax. So Arizona's going to have to confront the fact that now that we've crossed over and we've got more growth and choice, maybe it's time to put money in kids' backpacks and let the schools manage it and let the best schools we have accelerate.
Education Breakthrough Network, what is it that you're doing now nationally? What are you doing in Vermont? What are you doing in Florida?
Well, what we're doing is gathering everybody who does this work. You know, school choice tends to be treated as something marginal. People want to think, well, we'll have a few public charter schools, or maybe there's a couple of private schools, but in the main, public education is district schools. Not true anymore. As we just went over in Arizona, it's going to surpass eventually, and we're on a growth trajectory to do so now. So what we want to do is gather together everybody who does this work, make it very clear that there are excellent options out there, and that people who want to start schools, like teachers, can talk to their colleagues. They can go online, find out who's in their neighborhood, who's doing this work, who's advocating for it, and might help them at the legislature, and just get together as a massive organization. It's about 10 million people who get up every morning to produce school choice or advocate for it. But up to now, up till National School Choice Week this year, we have not had one shared cause together, and as you know, that makes a big difference.
Is there really a wave of really positive enthusiasm? Because you mentioned 40 out of the 50 states.
Unbelievable.
Are doing what?
Are celebrating the way we are in Arizona. So in Arizona, we'll have at least a dozen events. We've already had several where schools have an event to sort of celebrate what they're doing for school choice, and that includes, again, the Catholic schools in Arizona, the homeschooling organizations, the online learning organizations in Arizona, the public charter schools, private school networks. So these groups are all coming together and saying, we believe families deserve a choice. That's happening in over 40 states. Chicago this morning, you've got 1,000 kids rallying on the mall. Some of them, they want new laws, they want new access. Happened in Oklahoma last night. There are town hall meetings going on. It's really important, Pat, that this becomes as mainstream as possible, because parents need to understand these choices are critical for you.
Basis was considered to be, on a poll that I saw last year, I guess, by some people, the #1 school in the country.
U.S. News and World Report.
I said, well, no, wait a minute, it can't be the #1 school in the country. It's in Arizona. We don't have great schools here. I'm told that constantly.
Of course we do, but we just don't have enough of them. And the way that they do it is that they look all over the country for the best teachers in the country. They don't put money where it doesn't need to go. They pay for excellent teachers. Their teachers hire other teachers. They're all about excellence. They are a traditional school. They're not even using sort of a hybrid model with online learning, which a lot of schools are doing now. Carpe Diem in Yuma, fabulous school.
That's one of the choices,
That's
right?
one of the choices.
Homeschooling, online, charter,
Yeah.
public, private.
Yeah.
But what is the choice factor for a public school kid who wants to go to an outstanding high school like Grover?
So Arizona has tuition tax credits where you and Duffy could say, well, we want to give $1,000 of our tax burden. We'd rather give that to the Arizona School Choice Trust, who will then in turn turn around and give needy families scholarships so that they can offset, the cost of brophy. So in Arizona, that is paying for, well over 30,000 kids to go to school with 20,000 on a waiting list.
Well, what happens to our public schools, though? I mean, if everybody wants to go to Basis Charter School, which is a public school, right, but it's a different kind of a public school. The charter schools are different, and we'll explain that in just a couple of minutes because nobody understands it. If a kid lives in a public school district, what happens to that public school if half those students go to private schools and there's no funding from the state for that public school?
Public education is our obligation. It's a sacred obligation, I think, that we as citizens have said we want to pay for our students to go to great schools. So if the state says we're going to take this money and put it in your backpack, and collectively all of us in Arizona want you to have a great school experience, that's public education. Where you send your children and where that money gets spent is up to you as a parent. So it doesn't matter. You could choose brophy. That's public education funded through public policy. That's a private school funded, backed with a public policy. We got to get over ourselves, Pat. It isn't, we've set up this sort of false dichotomy between school districts and public charter schools and private schools, and we try to pit them against each other because, well, you're not part of public education. That we focus on education first. We focus on schools who know how to do that in a fabulous way, and we make sure we have policies that allow kids to go to great schools tomorrow according to what their parents think is the best for them.
Last night in the State of the Union address, President Obama was talking about us falling behind so many other nations in so many different subjects. Is this going to make a difference when it comes to the quality of education in America?
Not only will it, it already has. So school choice is home to the cure, Pat. Last night in his box, Speaker Boehner had families whose children have gone to private schools in Washington, D.C., where most kids in the district are failing. Most of them, as Michelle Reed can tell you. So there's an option program for scholarships to go to private schools, just like the president and his wife choose to do. And unfortunately, last year that program got shut down. What Speaker Boehner said was, I'm going to put only school choice people in the speaker's box. That's what he did. He put those families and their advocates there. They introduced a new bill to expand that scholarship program. Pat, when you've got a solution, we've got a cure, you've got penicillin, and you won't give it to kids because of tradition or because the teachers union says we don't like school choice or any other silly reason, and you sit around wringing your hands pretending like you don't know how to solve the problem, that's immoral.
What don't they like about school choice, the critics?
Well, first of all, it's not traditional, that's not the way we do it. So let's just give people the benefit of the doubt. They don't know how fabulous this opportunity is. For organizations like the teachers union who make their money out of compulsory dues, out of centralized systems, they're going to lose a lot of money. And they are fighting it tooth and nail in places like New Jersey, where they just finally passed a scholarship act. So we have to come to grips with, look, this isn't a Republican or Democrat thing. There's organizations called Democrats for Education Reform. We've got civil rights organizations who are part of this coalition for school choice. It's about what works for kids regardless of where you're coming from.
Can you tell me in 15 seconds what a charter school is and how it's different than a non-charter public school?
A public charter school is a school that is public. It has to accept whatever kids want to come, but it is independently run. Usually started by teachers. The money goes directly to that charter school, not to the school district. Money sort of travels in the back of the student's backpack there. Goes right with them to the school. They don't have all this sort of central office planning, and they run their school the way they see fit.
You're really good at everything except watching the clock. That was long past 15
I know it was. I'm sorry.
And by the way, there's a website, and that's where they get all of the information.
SchoolChoiceWeek.com or edbreakthrough.org, either one.
Okay, Lisa Graham Keegan, she's in charge of it, and also Yellow Scarf.